Yo, what's up? It's Amy and Kelly. We're here for tea time.
We read books. Hi and welcome. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Amy.
And we're here for Tea Time.
And today at Tea Time, we are going to be talking about the book Hidden Figures by Margot Lee Shetterly, while also building our very own rockets. Sorry. They're not going to be this big. This is just a little prop. They're going to be much smaller.
This is our launcher that we rigged ourselves.
Can you tell?
Are you gonna link the video that we actually took inspiration from? We didn't copy it, but we took inspiration from, so.
Yes, I will have that link down below so that way y'all can make your own rockets at home if you want to.
Because it is very cool and ours is functional.
Yes.
So,
this would be a great activity to do with your kids.
Yeah, it's fun. Fun stuff.
Anyway, to the book.
Anyway,
to the book, and
it made our launcher mini so that we could shoot the rockets in the house and have the cats chase them.
Oh yeah, fun fact about this rocket. So I made this in middle school. This is one of our middle school projects. We have a KU fin here, and the one that's broken off over here is North Carolina. Did not break it off recently. It just happened to
It's a sign.
Off. Yeah,
it's a sign.
It's a sign. This is KU's going to dominate North Carolina.
The Hawks are knocking them off.
Exactly. So Hidden Figures was my book pick, my book choice for this month, and I was excited to read it because I hadn't seen the movie yet. I was waiting to read the book first before watching the movie, and I'd heard that the movie was phenomenal. It was a great movie. The book definitely did not live up to that hype, in my opinion. I personally would probably give this book 3 stars, and that's being kind of generous, I think. I wanted to love it so badly, I really did. I couldn't.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. I think for me 3 stars is generous simply for the subject matter. I mean, it is a good subject, and it is an interesting subject. So yeah, I think I would probably do 3 as well, just for the subject matter. But the writing, the style in which it was delivered, if I was going on that, I mean, some of it was well done. It just kind of popped all over the place for me. That's where okay, so one thing is there's so many people talked about in this book. The movie features 3 people, and that's pretty much it. I mean, you know that there's a whole department, but yeah, you don't focus on those. She literally, I think, named everybody who ever worked for NASA in a 10-year period, which I know that's exaggerating, that's not true. But she would drop names all the time, and she would name everybody who worked in a specific department on a specific project, and then you'd literally never see those characters again or those people again. So it really didn't matter. It just confused me. And then there was one I actually think it was one of the white ladies that worked there. Actually, she mentioned her a couple times in the beginning because I think she was a contemporary of Dot Vaughn and was already working there when Dot started working there. And then she didn't feature at all until close to the end. And then it was just a passing reference that said, oh yeah, and then this lady too. And I'm like, who was that lady? Who's she talking about? And then I remembered. So that was really confusing to me.
Well, you did a better job of
so many people.
Well, my problem with that, not even that there was just so many people, but I felt it was hard to distinguish between them all. I felt I was reading about the same woman the whole time, but I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just
except for, I mean, I'd say except for like Catherine Goebel and Dot Vaughn. And I think it's just because you followed them both much more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And so that was easy. But yeah, whenever she like just pop off with names everywhere, it didn't make, I don't know. It just, yeah, they might as well all have been the same person.
Yeah.
And they were never ever mentioned again.
Right. And I mean, I understand her like wanting to give everybody their credit.
Right.
Because like clearly like
theme of the book.
Exactly. Like, and it's in what these women did, like it was very important, and I agree that everybody deserves, you know, recognition for what they did. But I think if they still would have got their recognition if you just focused on 3 main people, or 2, even 2, like just did Catherine and Dorothy, and just been like, oh yeah, here's a list of all of the other computers, like put them at the end, being like,
oh yeah,
they could have put it in the epilogue too.
Yeah,
it could have been like, I wish I could have talked about them more.
Well, like she did with those 2. There was like 2 of them, wasn't there? I'm sorry, I read this book like at the very beginning of the month, so it's been like 3 weeks since I read it. So I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, that happened, didn't it? So did you watch the movie?
I did. I just watched the movie today, and I think.
Spoil it.
Yeah, you can spoil it.
Okay, cool. Because I'm going to anyway.
The movie was definitely better than the book, but I didn't think the movie was as great as everyone said it was.
Really?
Really?
Why not?
It also was just kind of boring. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry.
No. Why? Why did you think it was boring? I loved the movie. I loved it.
I don't know. Like, it was one of those movies where I felt like I could just turn it on and I didn't have to sit and just watch it. Like, it could be background noise. And I don't know why that was. Everyone in the movie gave a wonderful performance. Like, for sure, Kevin Costner will always be one of my favorites for any type of nonfiction movie like that. And I think all of the women actresses, everyone that they picked to play like Dorothy and Catherine and those women, they did phenomenal. Like, they gave great performances. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I don't like nonfiction movies that much. Maybe they're all kind of like the same to me.
I would argue that this was a nonfiction movie. I don't think it was. I mean, it's definitely not. If you haven't seen it, it is not a documentary. So I would argue that it is so different than the book that it is more of a inspired by. I wouldn't even say based on. I'd say inspired by myself, because I don't think
it didn't follow the book at all.
No, it did not.
Which, in all honesty, it was
fine.
Definitely a good
That's
thing.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh man.
It was fine.
I can never be an engineer.
Can't even trace
I
the
can't
circle.
even trace. Yeah, exactly. I tried to trace it. I couldn't do that. Oh my lands.
Many people named.
Yes.
I don't think that was necessary. I mean, yeah, like you said, just in the epilogue or even an appendix, say this is a list of the people. Because again, they didn't have like any influence. I mean, it wasn't.
Right. Yeah. Like.
Yeah.
Even in the book, it was kind of just like a passing nod to them. There
Right.
wasn't anything that they added to the story.
And I think that's what she was trying to do, honestly, was to make sure everybody got their name
Right.
in.
Which
Which is fine.
We just
but
needed a list at the end of the book.
It's not entertaining
No.
to read.
Here are the West area computers.
Right.
Thank you for what you did for women and for African Americans and stuff at the time. Like, that's all we needed. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. And then the times. That was another thing that was really confusing sometimes. Like, it wasn't non-linear by any means, but whenever she would like introduce a new character, then she would like go back in time to talk about their past or their path through school or what they did. And it was interesting, I suppose, but then it got confusing because it wasn't always clear that she had gone back. And I really didn't quite get it because like I said, she would jump. It's not like she started with, say, Catherine, and she started from childhood and went on up. It was like she would introduce Catherine when Catherine joined NASA, and then would jump back to a particular time in her past, and then it would move on, and then she'd jump back maybe further to another time in her past. So it was never just a linear kind of thing, but it was confusing because it was just confusing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wrote
And
that
she
down.
did that with like almost all the characters, not just Catherine.
Yeah. So you're not only can I not tell the women apart, and now we have like multiple timelines going on for.
Yeah.
I was confused. I was very confused.
Yeah.
For sure.
Now, I will say, to be fair, I read the book fast because I was, I intended to go back and reread it. So, I mean, truthfully, my first way through, I was like, I was really reading it to compare it to the movie. I'll admit it. So that didn't really fly very well, and then I never went back and reread it. So I could have missed a lot because of that, and maybe I wasn't reading as closely as I should have been. So that could have been a problem. Probably was a problem. Not could have been.
I don't know. It took me the entire month to read it. I finished this book yesterday, and I was still confused and just.
Okay.
So I don't think it was just you.
So I'm like, didn't watch the instruction video on this part. How do you make a cone out of this?
Don't you just like roll it? Roll it how? Well, I don't know. I'm not an engineer, Kelly.
Yes, we should have watched. Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, okay. That could have been my fault for not reading as closely as I should have.
No, it wasn't. It was just a book.
Yeah, it was kind of confusing. And just not entertaining.
No, it was so
I'm
dry.
sorry, I didn't, yeah, I mean, it just, some things were entertaining. There were parts that were entertaining. But, okay, so here's another thing. Not only, I think, was it just trying to mention all the people, but I think she was trying to mention every event too, because it was like also the civil rights time.
Mm-hmm.
And while very interesting and a lot of things I didn't know, I don't, it was too much for one book. I think she didn't dwell long enough on, you know, her subject should have been the women at NASA, and I understand that the civil rights had to play a part in that, but I think she gave it too much time.
I agree. Like, I definitely think it was important to talk about what was going on at the time, just so that way the things that they did, their accomplishments, were, what's the word? Like, better.
Had some context.
Yeah, had some context, and you could see just how important the stuff that they did was.
Right.
And
How important they were
exactly,
to the movement.
Exactly, and how big of a deal they were.
Right.
Because the things that they were doing, like just even being employed at a job like that during that time,
Right.
was hard to believe.
Okay, now here's going to be my probably white woman uneducated, because I okay, what really not surprised me, not, I can't think of the word, what struck me was, I guess, not only working in such maybe a more prestigious job, although it should have been more prestigious than it was. But the fact that they were working. And I think, now this is where I'm going to say, like, a racial divide, I guess, because in that time period, there was a lot of women stayed home, took care of their families.
Part of it.
White women, though.
For part of it. Because during that time, there also was the war.
Well,
And
that's
so
true.
there were a lot
she
more
went
women.
all the way back. It
There
wasn't
were a
all
lot
about
more women that were in the workforce then.
Well, yes, I mean that's true, but I'm thinking more like in the 50s when a lot of this was, a lot of the main like stuff was going on. Because in the 50s though, it was very much, June Cleaver was kind of the ideal.
True.
At least that's what, everybody was told. But I think this is where kind of there's a dissonance there, is that was not their reality. And, for a black woman to be working was just not unusual because they had to.
Right.
So I think, I don't know, that's where I was, again, not surprised, but I was struck by it. And then as soon as I thought, you're an idiot. You shouldn't be surprised about that. That's no big surprise that that's the way it was.
Right.
But it was just, I don't know. It was just kind of, even, especially given like today when like a main issue with a woman in the workforce is kids and, quality daycare, not being treated like you're diseased when you get pregnant, or that you even have a job to go back to. That, these women, they had their babies, they were working, and they had a whole community that kind of took care of their kids when they went to work. And so I don't know I don't know. It just kind of struck me. And then I thought it really oughtn't struck me, surprised me, impressed me. That was their reality. And it's probably always been the case. It's just that, once again, hidden. I don't know if that's really known about. I think we all think of the 50s as a time when moms stayed at home and raised the kids and took care of the home, that kind of thing, and that just wasn't the case.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That is true.
Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Now it makes me wonder, like, how many women actually were working, and it was just like some like projection that women stayed home. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was, I don't know. Anyway, even if it was just cultural conditioning, it obviously worked on me because I think of that time period as women staying home. That it was really difficult for a woman to go to work, and that when she did, it was some big deal, big fight with her husband or her family, that kind of thing. And I'll tell you what else, when I watched the movie, it was probably why I got a little tense when Mary was going back to school to be an engineer, and her husband was, standing there watching her get ready and stuff, and I can't remember, she said something about, you got something to say, and I thought, oh, here it comes, he's gonna be like all macho and you don't need to be doing this kind of thing. And he comes in and he gives her mechanical pencils. And I thought, oh,
So sweet.
but I guess that goes to show the conditioning that I expected there to be an argument or a fight over her doing that, and he was all like 100% behind her, and basically said something like, if there's one thing, if Mary Jackson says she's going to do something, she's going to do it, kind of thing. So I don't know. Anyway, that's my thoughts on women working in that time period. It just, anyway, like I said, it hit me funny, but not funny. It just hit me. I think maybe she should write another book that focuses just on the civil rights movement in her area, because I think some really interesting things were going on at that part of Virginia.
Yeah. I agree. There could have been a whole nother book on just that.
And I think it would have been good.
Maybe. I don't know.
She's not giving any.
Uh,
I do think, again, there were some really interesting things going on in that part of Virginia because obviously very progressive because of NASA, but also being one of the last states in the Union to get rid of segregation. And the biggest dragging their feet. Oh my gosh. It was nuts. Shutting down public schools just because they didn't want to integrate.
yeah.
They actually shut down public schools and spent taxpayer money sending kids to private schools. It was ridiculous. Interesting things going on.
Yeah.
So I think it would have been great, but it was just almost too much for this book,
Right. And
I think. I just
yeah.
ruined that.
Yeah, that was another one of my notes that I wrote down, is that she had a lot of good points to make about how things were back then, and how anytime there was any type of small victory made by these women or whatever, like, she gave them a lot of credit, but she never knew when to stop with all. I just feel like it was the same things that she was hammering over and over again. Like, there's so much racial segregation, there's so much hate, there's so much this, there's so much that. And I'm like, I heard this like just a couple pages ago already. We don't need to keep discussing it.
Yeah. And that's it. There was, but yeah. Move forward with the story.
Yeah.
But what was funny, I mean not funny, haha, but interesting funny to me, is that especially with Catherine, it was said repeatedly that she just didn't pay any attention to it. You know, she really focused on the job that she had to do and nothing. So like in the movie, there's the big scene where Kevin Costner goes and knocks the colored sign, right?
Right.
Okay, so it didn't happen.
That would have been cool though if it had.
But it wasn't necessary. Okay, so in the movie, there's this big thing made where the only colored bathrooms were in the West Wing, or the West area. And so Catherine would have to go across parking lots and what they say in the movie, like
half a mile,
just to go to the bathroom. And so it gets to this point where Kevin Costner's character gets mad because she's not there when he wants her to be, and he confronts her and blah 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 blah, and it's this whole big deal. She doesn't blow up because her character does not blow up, but she basically gives her little speech, you know, about this is the way it is, this is how we're treated, all
There's
of this
no
stuff.
bathroom for me here.
Yeah, no bathroom. They won't even drink out of the same coffee pot as she does. Whatever. Anyway, and he goes and knocks down the signs off the bathrooms and says from here on out, they basically use whatever bathroom is closest because we got to get work done.
Yeah. We all pee the same color. And
Yeah. So
it was a good scene. I enjoyed it.
So anyway, yeah, that didn't happen. In the book, it was that Catherine she just ignored it. I mean, there were segregated bathrooms, but that there was colored restrooms in the building. But they weren't close to her office, so she just ignored them, and she went to whatever bathroom was closest. Mm-hmm. So I think that was kind of interesting that, you know, she was just focused on her job and on the math and getting the job done, and she didn't have time for that stuff, so she just ignored it.
Do you think that they did that in the movie for another reason, to try and make a white man look like he was?
Okay.
We can get into
The
a whole
white
other tangent
savior
here.
trope. The white
Yes.
savior trope. I don't know if that was the intention, but
Because they could have easily made
That-
it just her going into the non-colored bathroom in the movie. That would have still been just as significant.
yeah,
But they didn't.
but they didn't.
So,
Except that,
Oh.
okay, so on the one hand, doing that also played into another scene where Dot and her white supervisor,
Mrs. Mitchell.
yeah, had a conversation in the bathroom. So it kind of played into that too. But yeah, I wondered about the whole white savior trope coming through there. But I think that the book itself, while it addressed
Mm-hmm.
racism and stuff, there wasn't a lot of racism directly to these women, if that makes sense.
Like directed towards them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because at least it read in the book to me like the NASA culture was very much, we're just here to get a job done.
Right.
And granted, yes, women were not given the opportunities men were. They were paid less. They weren't allowed to have the titles that would earn them the money. So like what, men were engineers, women were mathematicians, even though they were doing the exact same job. Because it meant money, basically. And what they got. And women couldn't be engineers.
Oh gosh, no, because
At
they're women.
first, women couldn't even be mathematicians, you know. But, so, anyway, I think maybe the movie had to, because it was following these women during this time period, you almost can't not address racism, but yet there was very little of it going on with these women.
Right.
Directly, I should say.
While
I mean,
at-
there
while
was
at
some.
work.
While at work.
There was some,
There was some, yes. Like
but not.
Mary having to go to the high school or to the school, and she did have to do that. She did have to get special permission.
Mhm.
It just didn't outline, it dramatized how she got in front of the judge, but that did happen. So yeah, I mean, they did experience segregation. The whole hotel thing, you know, where Dot's husband, that's mine. Dot's husband worked at that hotel at the same time as Catherine's dad. So, you know, it was all black help, but only white patrons.
Mhm.
And then towards the end, you know, they organized that sorority trip in the mountains, in the woods. It was a resort owned by a black couple, only open to, or maybe not only open to blacks, but anyway.
Yeah.
They got to go there. And so yes, they experienced it, but yeah, at work, they just really, I mean, I'm sure they did to some extent, but it wasn't, I don't know, at least in the way the book presented it, it wasn't a big deal, really.
Mhm.
It was more gender than it was racial.
Mhm.
Most of it. I mean, there was the West computers that was basically the black computers. It wasn't.
Right. And I think they made a comment somewhere in the book how like the East computers didn't even know that there were less computers.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah. So anyway, I think the movie maybe had to dramatize things a little bit in order to, like I said, for that time period, you can't not
right.
address racism, but they had to get it in there somewhere, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, the way they did it. There's always the white savior thing, and the male savior too. It had to be the white.
Cool to see.
But
that.
I do think you're right. I think it would have been more true to her character, and probably more empowering to have Catherine really have to go to the bathroom and just go, I ain't doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you know, the whole scene with Martin Luther King and Nichelle Nichols. Nothing to do with anything in the book other than civil rights at the time. I mean, it was interesting, don't get me wrong. It was interesting,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't have anything to do with the subject matter of the book.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that was really necessary.
It wasn't. It really wasn't. Our rockets are so pretty.
That's one. Well, that's something.
Did you think it was weird that Langley was the place where that was so progressive? Like, were you surprised that they were kind of more progressive in their hiring and?
Yes and no. I mean, somewhat, because you wouldn't think a government entity would, especially in Virginia,
Right.
would be. But yet, at the same time, I do think she explained that pretty well as far as where the background comes in. They were under the gun, you know. They had to expand, and they had to expand fast, and they just didn't have enough people.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have access to enough people. So they had to open it up
Right.
to, well, I think there were already women working there, but she was talking about the Tuskegee Airmen too.
That's true. That is true.
Which they're interesting as well.
The Tuskegee Airmen are on the march.
Little night at the museum there.
Every time I hear Tuskegee Airmen, that's what I think of. That movie. The Tuskegee Airmen.
Yeah, they're an interesting group. They're really interesting. They had their own bits of nasty happen to them.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Well, hello, Miss Bailey.
Hi.
Hi, baby girl.
Hi. But yeah, I mean, yeah, she was, like I said, she's all over the place. And I know that she was doing it to give background, you know, to how it was these women got where they were and the reasons for it. But I think there was a little much. But anyway, I think that considering what they had to get done and what they had to accomplish, there for a while, women were the only way it was going to happen. And then dealing with all of the, you know, well, women can't be engineers.
Yeah.
Well, first it was women couldn't be mathematicians, so they had to be computers. And then it was, well, okay, they're mathematicians, but they can't be engineers, even though they were doing just that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they were on a timeline and they had to get work done. And that's what they had. And that was an untapped labor market.
Yeah, that is true.
And it's possible that there was just too much competition for the men. Because it's not like the government was the only place doing any engineering.
True.
So, I don't know. But they did talk about the dude, I can't remember his name. What was his name? Melvin Butler. The personnel officer at Langley. Yeah. They did talk about him being progressive. Very progressive. That, you know, he was like, well, here's an untapped labor market and we need labor.
Mm-hmm.
And he really didn't care who it was. Okay, so we've ranted a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What was something that you liked?
You'll have to come back to me. I'm sorry, every time I picked up this book, I read it like one chapter at a time because I was falling asleep every time. Like, I could have gotten 8-9 hours of sleep the night before, opened the book to read, and halfway through the chapter, I'm like, oh God. So, okay, here's what I liked. I liked the message.
Mm-hmm.
I liked learning about these women, the West computers, and like just all of the computers in general, not just the West computers, but obviously their story was more prominent, more impactful, I guess. But I think that it was a very important message. Like, I think this book needed to be authored because their stories needed to be told. And I don't think that we would have known about them otherwise. And I think that it was very important. And I appreciated the message, and I liked the message of the book. I just didn't like how it was written, and I think it could have been done better.
The delivery.
The delivery fell short, but it was a very powerful and important message. So there's something good. And feminism, yay.
Yay.
Yeah. Go women.
Yay. Yeah, what she said. Yeah.
You don't got anything to add to that, Kelly? You didn't like anything else?
No, I mean, but I think I already said that I liked the different perspective. And okay, just on a note here, maybe this is why we have a bit of a difference, is that I have a number of years on Amy. So,
I mean,
we were raised a couple generations apart. So that may have a bit of something to do with how we think of things.
it could be.
So I mean the different perspectives as far as, being contrary to what I thought. Or maybe not necessarily contrary, but because like I was talking about working before, I still do think it was probably the norm for white women to stay home and take care of the kids and the family in the 50s and 60s. Whereas I guess my blind assumption was it was the same for black women, but obviously not. So I think that, that kind of, it educated me. There you go. In ways. I enjoyed learning about the double V. I had never heard that before. The World War II, when they were talking about any opportunity like during the war, it had to be, it didn't have to be, they wanted it to be a double victory. So not only a victory for the country in the war, but it also would in some way further civil rights causes. And so it would be a double victory. And I did not know that either. So that was kind of interesting. I guess I always knew about civil rights. I always had a broad view of the civil rights movement, but I did not ever really know details about it or what it all entailed. So I found that interesting.
I don't think that that's very surprising either, because I think,
No, I don't think
especially when you're in school, it's not like they really go deep into detail about how things were for everybody during that time.
It's all about Martin Luther King Jr. And his speeches and his assassination, and it's about the marches and the protests. But you just the fire hosings, the lynchings, the big moments, I guess. And you just don't get a lot.
The ones that aren't as easy to hide.
Well, very true. But you don't get a lot of the behind the scenes, the planning, and like I said, the double V, how they wanted any victories within the war to also be a victory for them in furthering their cause. So and you don't get that. So I thought that was interesting to me. So I enjoyed that part.
Yes. And I think that that's a good kind of test to why we need to read more from authors of different races and different countries and things like that as well, because the white Americans are ignorant.
Obviously.
I'm just going to say it. Like, we're very ignorant. And so I think it's very important with any type of, if you're going to read, you should at least have something like this where it was authored by someone of a different race or from a different country. Which we are doing in this book club quite a bit, actually. Cause
we are.
Our next book is by someone from,
Ukraine. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There is a lot. We're doing a lot of,
Look at us
of
go.
varied authors.
Look at us go.
I will say one thing I thought, again, interesting, and it probably falls into the whole educating Kelly theme here. But it talked about further, like, you know, they all lived in this black neighborhood. And it was nice. It was, you know, well maintained. But then as these ladies kind of started moving up the hierarchy and getting more money, and they were able to move out. They were able to buy their own homes and move out into different neighborhoods. And so when kind of this professional aspect left the neighborhood, how it went downhill after that. And so in a way, you know, their progress was still just for them. It was still an individual thing, whereas it wasn't one of the double V's for the whole community.
Right.
And so how, you know, their progress was not progress for everyone. So that it still, I mean, as much as it did for them, and probably a certain, obviously a certain category of people, because these ladies were so successful that when Langley went out recruiting, you know, they did go to the black colleges and they did look at the black women. You know, they weren't excluded, and it wasn't near as hard as it was for Dot Vaughn. So, but yet it still wasn't. It still didn't lift everyone up.
Right.
And I think that was pretty obvious in the, you know, the fact that their neighborhood, when those professional women, the professional families left, it didn't, you know, it kind of, there went the neighborhood. But then, you know, that made me wonder, too. Do you remember 2 years ago we read about Henrietta Lacks?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was also in Virginia, wasn't it?
Maybe.
I think it was.
I know it was in the South, but I don't know.
Well, anyway, regardless, it kind of made me think that, like, the neighborhood these ladies left behind, could that possibly be like a familiar neighborhood that Henrietta and her family lived in? Because it always talked about it being kind of run down and, you know,
Like similar to, or
yeah, not the same one. I don't think it's the same one. And that's a big tangent too, because maybe these people don't even know what we're talking about.
maybe I don't know.
Anybody's watching.
If you haven't
Hopefully
read,
somebody's watching.
If you haven't read The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, that is a nonfiction book that was done very well.
Yeah. It was really good.
It was really well done. Yes.
If you want an education, read that book.
That is an eye-opening book.
Holy cow.
For sure. For sure.
Yes, it was. Very much so.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, a tangent that, like I said, maybe nobody knows what we're talking about, but it did make me wonder if that was because yeah, I mean, that could have been. Oh, I know another thing that just totally impressed me. These ladies did flipping everything. I mean, they worked, and they worked like dogs. It, you know, when this project, or these projects, and again, going back to the movie, it did not happen as quickly or as, this book covers a lot more area than the movie does, obviously. But they worked for years on this stuff, and they would work not just your 40-hour week, but then they would go back and they would be like, I think Mary ran a hospitality, so like people that were new moving into their neighborhoods, she was like in charge of hospitality, at greeting them and introducing them to all the various clubs and introducing them around. Catherine was very active in her sorority. I think they all taught Sunday school classes.
There was someone who had a Girl Scout.
That was
troop.
Mary.
Okay,
yeah, that was Mary. big into that.
Super, super big.
And yeah, we're not just talking like going and giving a couple hours to PTO
Oh no.
every 6 months. This was like all the time
Mm-hmm.
and very, very active. And so they were raising families, they were working far more than 40 hours a week, and then they had volunteer activities at church, Girl Scouts, you know, like I said, the hospitality places, Catherine's sorority, because that's the resort.
Mm-hmm.
When they went, I don't know if it's the Catskills or the Adirondacks, I don't even know, but this black-owned resort that Catherine took her sorority to, because she was like president of her sorority. And it's like, there is a great big, well, we've been, you two probably, but definitely me, a big thing about, you know, don't think you have to do it all. You're not Superwoman. It was other women that always told me when, you know, my kids were little and I was still working.
That is true.
You know,
true.
that it's okay. You're not Superwoman. You don't have to do it all. It's okay to ask for help. These women were
super women.
oh my gosh. I don't know if they didn't sleep
There's no way
or
that they could have.
what. But I also think what they had the benefit of was community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it talks about like it takes a village to do anything, it takes a village to raise kids, whatever, they had it. They had the community. And maybe that is, I don't know, but they had it. Well, it talks about like Dot Vaughn, she traveled, what, 4 hours or 6 hours from where she lived to work at Langley?
Yeah.
So she left her kids at home
Mm-hmm.
with basically the neighborhood watching over them
Mm-hmm.
until she could afford to rent a house that all of them could live in together.
Right.
And even then, it was just her because her husband traveled for work, and I think it said they didn't really have much of a marriage anyway.
No.
But he traveled, he was
Also
never
difference
there.
in the movie.
Very much so, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So even when she would go to work, it was still her neighborhood,
She had to
their
be
community.
mom and dad for the kids,
Hmm.
and also still like do all of this other stuff.
But you know, yeah, I mean, but she had like her neighbors and like the grandmothers that didn't work. That it was just like nothing to know that your neighbors would watch after your kids after school until you got home. So I think that, you know, that helped, of course, but yeah, man, they really did work. And it wasn't necessarily just to, because they did do some things that were like to promote civil rights,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't all of it. I mean, a lot of it was just they're part of the community. That's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah, I felt like a slacker.
Right? Me too. But that was another thing that I did enjoy is like, I mean, when she followed one person, like Dot and Catherine, to some extent Mary, but not quite as much. But she really did flesh those ladies out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they really did have quite a story. It was just, you could kind of sometimes skip over some of the, I think, didn't she even go to like through some of the math and the science?
Yeah, which was, sorry.
So exciting.
I am a scientist, ma'am. Okay.
I know. I didn't understand it.
Well, it doesn't mean I understood either. That's a lot of physics and things that I did. I did not like doing physics in college. I'm so sorry, Mangela. You were a great physics professor, but I hated it. And yeah,
I like chemistry.
I did not like chemistry either.
Really? Experiments?
Biology through and through.
Blowing stuff up.
But I never got to do
Well,
that.
we
I always
didn't-
had to do distillations. And
We didn't blow stuff up, but we, you know, did the whole like volcano, like chemical reactions. I love chemical reactions.
We didn't do that. I didn't get to do
Oh, you were cheated.
that.
I had a great science teacher.
I think the book could have done without the explanation of all of the math and the science, because 98%, 99% of the people reading this book probably didn't understand a single word of it. Myself included. Like, I really just skipped it. Like,
It's kind of like when we read The Martian.
Yeah.
I skimmed that too.
Yeah.
I
But
didn't.
that
I
book
didn't
was
read
good.
the science. That was a very good book. We need to read Project Hail Mary.
Yes.
Have you read it yet?
No, it's on my list.
We need to
I was
read that
going to buy
book.
it from Twice Told Tales, and I just haven't gotten there yet. Because I was waiting for the hardcover. Because I'm a paperback snob.
You are a paperback snob.
I like all of my books to be the same height and like have hardcovers last longer. Hardcovers last longer.
Not if you take care of them. I like interest in my bookshelf.
She likes to have character in her bookshelf.
I like character. Oh, puns and stuff.
That's what I do. You know. Just had to tee off with that one, so.
Oh my gosh, they're everywhere.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop me.
Okay.
So, you want to talk about the movie
Oh yes.
a little bit?
Differences
Or
between the
something?
book and movie.
Yeah,
Everything.
almost.
I think they kept the names of the characters the same, and
Yeah.
that was about it.
They do work at Langley.
They do work at Langley.
They do work on
It is
the yeah, they do work on the space stuff.
Mhm.
And John Glenn did want Catherine to run the numbers because he didn't trust the IBM machine.
Yes.
But he didn't know her name.
No.
he had
the
never-
smart one.
He had never met her.
Oh,
They didn't have the whole-
That's right.
My favorite scene in the movie is when she gets up and does the math in front of this room full of men who are basically all looking down on her.
Yes.
And so in the movie, that's what leads up to John Glenn saying, let Catherine, if Catherine tells me it's good, I'm good. That didn't happen in the book, so. But it was my favorite.
That was a good
Part.
scene. And I just liked John Glenn's character in the movie a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
Not only just because he was
It's
a
John
good
Glenn.
looking man, but also, yeah. I liked how he, the first time that we're introduced to his character, he's going over and he goes directly to
Yeah.
the computers.
There's like a receiving line
Mhm.
that he's shaking everybody's hands and stuff like that. And they're trying to, of course, the colored women are off to the side, the black women. He doesn't allow himself to be ushered off. He goes over and meets them. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty
Also not in the book.
No.
We already talked about the bathroom scene,
Mm-hmm.
not in the book.
Was Zarnecki in the movie at all?
Yes, that was the engineer Mary worked with, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah. He was there. But it wasn't him that encouraged Mary to go to school. It wasn't, that was all dramatized. And the whole, it did happen that when I think the women were starting to say, hey, I want to be an engineer kind of thing, all of a sudden there were new educational requirements. But it didn't play out like it did in the movie.
Right.
And there was no courtroom scene in the movie.
No.
In the book.
You had to dramatize it.
It was all dramatized. And a much shorter deal. Like I said, these ladies worked for years and years and years on one project.
Whoa.
And that was, obviously a lot of the timeline was condensed into a very short time. The three ladies were not friends like they are in the movie. They were aware of each other. They knew each other. They were all in the same community. But yeah, they were not friends like it shows in the movie.
Yeah, in the
But
movie
I
they seem
guess-
like they're super close friends.
But I guess what I'm saying is for instance, in Dot worked there basically before Mary and Catherine did. They didn't work. They overlapped some, but not a lot. How can it not fit? I made sure.
Oh no, Kelly.
See, now it's. Uh-oh. Maybe it won't. Oh, man. I think it's not. I think we need to take those. I don't know if she is interested or just doesn't know what to think.
What do you think, Bells? Hmm?
Yeah, you get a lot more stomping on it than.
Not much height, just
Well,
some distance.
Yeah, I was kind of like doing that on purpose, but. Because, I mean, you know, obviously, normally we would have the whole stand
Right.
and it would go. I don't think I can probably. No, I can't. I could probably make it go straight up. Fun with science. Oh! Okay, I was in the way. So yeah, you can make it, but that's why they use the 45s instead of the 90.
Right.
This is not what was on the video, kids.
We're doing great. Do you want to show the people your rocket? What does your little rocket look like?
My little rocket. Yours was cuter. You actually did decorations on yours. Do you want to shoot your rocket?
I did. Yeah, we can try and shoot my rocket.
Okay.
This is my rocket. It's the epic one because the everyday epic.
The everyday epic. And she's got little books on there too. Oh.
Oh yeah.
So creative. Mine was plain. But there you go.
I just wanted to make one rocket. Okay.
Okay, look, Mama's gonna shoot a rocket for you to play with.
Come here. Yeah. Are you ready? Are you... Stay there. We gotta launch. Okay? 3, 2, 1.
It worked.
It worked.
I'm not impressed. Look at him walk off. Fig, man, come on.
Hey, where's your support? I support you in everything that you do. I let you get on the table.
Do you care?
No.
Do you care?
No.
Hey, Fig.
What about you? Oh,
Dude.
Bailey does though. Hey, Bill. Come here. Kitty, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty.
Oh, sure, now he's interested.
Are you ready, Bells? You ready?
Oh, maybe. Investigate. I really thought they'd enjoy this more.
I really did too. You know, it's like, why, cats? Come on. Here, what if we do it on the ground?
That was the whole reason for the
What if we-
mini.
What if we make it skin?
Oops.
What do you think, Billy?
Huh.
Well, that's kind of sad.
Well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, you know.
It was good. It worked though.
Yes.
It served its intended purpose. We shot rockets.
Yes,
It was improvised. It is very poor. When you watch the video of this was based on or inspired by, much like we think the book
Yeah.
or the movie was inspired by the book, you'll understand how pathetic that is. But it did work.
It did.
So we're good.
It did.
Yay.
Yeah. Yay.
Hey, once again, launchers, rockets,
Launchers, rockets.
launchers. The epic one.
Yes.
Okay,
Not
and
very epic space flight, but
it wasn't, but it worked.
it did.
So, all right, there you go, Granger. And he's like uninterested.
Our rockets weren't a complete failure.
No, it worked.
It did. For sure.
I thought the cats would like them more, but
Yeah.
they didn't.
Lazy little turds. They just didn't care. Typical cats.
Take that down to the shelter in the kitten room and you'd probably be a big hit.
Maybe. That's gonna do it for our Hidden Figures talk. That was probably way too long and had way too many tangents, but we hope that you enjoyed it anyway.
I think a lot of editing could be done
We'll
on
see.
that video.
We'll
Yeah.
see.
Probably a good thing it wasn't live streamed.
Yeah, you never know.
Editing is good.
For
Yeah. But okay.
Okay. So our next pick is yours.
It's mine. Silence of Trees. You probably can't see it that far away. By Valia Lupescu. I hope that's the correct pronunciation. But anyway, yeah, this is, my book is warped. The book about the woman that lives in Chicago who immigrated from the Ukraine. And when she was a young person, 16 years old, she snuck out, and while she was gone, her family was murdered. And so this is her life later on in Chicago, but kind of the past is coming back to haunt her in kind of the fashion of this kind of a speculative fiction book, not just coming back to haunt her mentally, but actually showing up in different ways. And so I believe, as I understand it, there's a lot of Ukrainian culture in here, a lot of folk magic in coming to life in ways that her dead relatives are trying to reach out to her and make themselves heard. So that is next month.
Sounds like it's going to be a good one.
Yes, I think so.
May 1st. That was aggressive. May 1st. The Silence of Trees.
Be there.
Be there, be square. Hopefully it will be a live stream. I don't know if that's good or bad for you, because we tend to ramble a lot.
We do, and that's why editing is good.
Yeah, but you know, it'll be like you're just chilling with two friends.
But as long as, you know, somebody shows up, if somebody shows up to read with us and actually comments,
yeah, then we'll stay on track more.
that will be good. But you know, if nobody shows up and it's still just us, I don't know if that's gonna fly very well, but we'll see.
We'll do our best. We'll do our best. We'll roll with it. You know, you never know.
It might be entertaining. It might not be. Who knows? I don't know. All right. Okay. So yeah, May 1st. Silence of Trees. Read along, please.
Yes.
Read along. Comment on the video.
Yeah.
Please. Tell us you were here.
Yeah. If you read Hidden Figures, let us know your thoughts on the book down in the comments below. Do you also agree with us that it was not well done, but the movie was better?
The movie was better.
I don't know. Let us know,
Yeah.
especially if you have a differing opinion. I'd love to hear why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So, I think that's it for us.
Okay. So,
Officially. Our Midwestern goodbye that keeps going on and on and on.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, but wait.
Yeah. Oh, how's your mom? How's your dad?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to ask.
Yeah.
Oh, I really have to go. By the way. We all do it.
Yeah.
Every one of us.
Yes.
Okay. Our battery's gonna die again on us, I swear, because we keep rambling on and on. So, I'm Kelly.
And I'm Amy.
And we're Tea Time.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Bye. Joe.
We read books.
We read books.
We're here today to talk about this one in particular.